All right, hello, welcome to the weekly outlook in the DeFi Dojo. Today is March 24th, 2024, and we've experienced some pullbacks in the market as we expected over the last couple weeks. I had warned for consecutive days in a row prior to our pullback that I think I'm starting to feel like this is going to happen, and then it kind of did the next day. So we have some opportunities of potentially buying things cheaper. However, maybe we keep dipping, right? I don't know. That's the question. So I'm going to dig through these charts and kind of give you an idea of what I'm thinking. I'm mostly neutral this week because it's kind of hard to discern just, in a short period of time, like a week, on what we're going to get. But, overall long term, we are definitely bullish. I would not recommend, selling out of anything at this moment in time. But I do think that it's a good idea to take profits, especially if you are on, 100% gains or more on some of the things that you've been holding for a really long time, right? Tau, we bought it back in December of 22, and it went from $20 for where we bought it up to 700 plus. So yes, I definitely took profits on that, and I don't really regret it. I don't really care if it goes to $1,000. I'm pretty happy with that trade. So with that said, I've bought a couple other things now that are like super low market cap that I think have some really big potential using those profits, right? So it's not like I'm completely out of the game. I've now just redistributed that free money into some more free tokens somewhere else that could potentially do another 10 times to 20 times, right? So if you want to, learn about what those are, you can get into the Discord. The link will be in the description. All right, so let's go over the dollar. The dollar is now bullish again. What? Like, why? Why is it consistently moving up and down in here? Well, it's just getting consolidation in a tight range. And you can see here, depending on like where I put that trend line, like we may have broken it, right? We broke over the 382. If I put it at the most extreme, it looks like I'm over it, right? So we broke over, then closed over that 382 through both EMAs. EMAs are now bullish. We couldn't close over it here, and now we can here. So our support held, and we got a big move back up over the last couple weeks. With this, equities could come down from here. The problem is when I look at something like the S&P, we closed over the main 1.272. So, could it just, close another candle back below this week? Sure, absolutely could. Could just create an entire reverse candle here. But we need to see it to start figuring out if that's what's actually happening. If I do see a big red candle here this week, and we close back down below, and the dollar is heading, north of this line now and fully bullish, then I am going to start maybe buying some short-term puts on SPY and, maybe some of them other big tech stocks that have been flying high, maybe NVIDIA. Might be able to catch an NVIDIA scalp. Who knows? I don't know. If I probably wouldn't mess with that one. Probably pick something weaker. But I think we're getting close to something, right? We haven't had the RSI this high on the S&P since... Don't freak out. But since here, which was just before the COVID crash, right? It's never been this high. If you just look at my horizontal line going across the top of the RSI there, that's exactly where we are. So whether or not we get something like that, I don't know. But what I do know is the higher it goes, and the more irrational it gets, you can see it's kind of very similar to this move. Right? Like this move is very similar in just being straight up. And we've done it now for twice as long as that move. Prior to that, nothing was really that inclined as this is. This was, right? And then look what happens in just a couple weeks. It just loses it all. So, we could be in for something like this soon, where the correction that comes isn't just a minor one. It's a pretty major one that could bring us all the way back down to our trend line, which would be great because that's where really where I want to buy and where I've been waiting weeks and months to buy is waiting for that test of this line again. So I think I'm just going to keep being patient. I don't really want to buy too much in a market that is this extended, and I think that patience will pay off eventually. Like, I really don't care if it comes all the way up here first before it drops back down, because the higher this goes, it will touch that line again. And when it does, that's where I want to get it. And I don't care if I have to wait another 3 months of up before I get it, or maybe it's 2 weeks. Patience is the name of the game. So looking at the NASDAQ, it still has a little bit of room to get to that 2.272. It's not nearly as overextended as the S&P is. Notice the S&P is convergent, where our RSI is going up and trending up with the price, but the NASDAQ is not. The NASDAQ is actually currently bullishly divergent, where this high here is higher than this high here, right? So you can clearly see that this is pointing down while this is pointing up. And this is all of your, big techy stuff. So we might get, a serious pullback on big tech. And so that's where I would maybe try to scalp short like Meta and Amazon and Google and, all these big. Nvidia is probably the majority of this. So if we do finally start getting a pullback on some things, I want to wait to confirm it by seeing a red weekly candle close. And then the following week, I might start kind of, averaging into a couple puts. I'm not going to go nuts, but just to do a little hedge on the overall portfolio, so to speak. Looking at the Dow Jones, this could be a really big indication, right? So when we measure downtrends in crypto, we see this 1.618 break and then fall back below and kind of, dance around it. And that's because the volume and liquidity in crypto is so much less than it is in equities. When we're talking about something like the Dow Jones, this thing is the most liquid market in the world. Like this, it doesn't get any more liquid than this. The volume is extreme. And so we pay attention to these touches because they are very big resistances. It will take a lot for this to get over this. You can also see we're really high on the RSI, and our MACD is already starting to kind of curl downward a bit, right? So this could be telling us that we're near a top on equities as well. And so don't let the FOMO get to you. I do think that there will be better opportunities in the future. So looking at USDT dominance. So if I stretch this out and get rid of all these lines, you can see that we hit that all-time trend line, and then that's where I was saying, hey, look, I think we're probably going to get a pullback, and then a couple weeks later we get one. Now you can see if we zoom in, we tested that 8 EMA on the weekly and rejected it pretty hard, right? And now we're starting to come back up towards it. And you can see that that can happen, right? We can touch it, fall, come back to it, fall, come back to it, finally get over it. And so we could get something like that over the next couple of weeks as we go into the Bitcoin halvening. And I think that that's probably what we're going to see. I don't think we're going to see any more rockets for a couple of weeks. Not until maybe a week or two after the halvening happens. I think we're going to consolidate, go sideways, see some dips. And so you don't have to try to dollar cost average your whole stack into something that dips. Just take little nibbles on dips. Conserve some cash. Again, take some profits on the things that are super high that you've gotten, plenty of reward on, a little profits from those, and then you can take those dips and put them into the things that are currently undervalued, that you see the chart starting to turn and become good, and you want to maybe get something that's low instead of trying to put more money into the things that are really high. That's what I'm doing anyway. So RVST, I like it a lot, and I think that it has a lot of potential. FLX is kind of a stable coin right now, but we're waiting for the conversion over to SATA protocol. So I think that this is going to do well and get up into these areas at the very least eventually. So I'm just holding some of that. I like Matic, OP. Some of the layer 2s kind of look interesting right now. Another one that I liked was, I can't think of the name now, but I did like it. Oh, Boson. Okay, so this is another RWA play. And they've been around for a really long time, and they just kind of released some new information recently. And it has a good potential to at least get up to that 0.5 at the 70-cent mark. So I'm going to start averaging into this as I see some dips. I'm kind of hoping to get a retest to that 44-cent area here that you could see was resistance before. And if I do, I'm probably going to get quite a bit there. There's no divergence happening that I see on the weekly. Daily isn't really nothing to pay too much attention. The MACD is not divergent. So this is a solid uptrend that's happening right now, and you want to just kind of, nibble on the dips. And so things like this that I'm finding I would much rather invest in than, something like Sol that's, sure, it's probably going to be around. It's probably going to go hit new all-time highs eventually. I'm not going to say that it's not. but its upside is very limited compared to something that's way down here. So like if you're, in super profits on Sol, there's nothing wrong with taking a little bit out of it and putting it into something that has more potential and more, potential to gain than Sol does from here. Sol could get up to like 700 or into this area. And so that might be, 3 or 4 times gain by the time we get to the top of the bull market. But something like this can get, and granted, it is riskier because it's, a lower market cap token. So your risk is definitely less holding on to Sol. But if we take, 20 cents, which is our average right now, up to, $1.50 to $6, that's way better than Sol, right? So that's just kind of the things that I'm looking at and what I'm wanting to do. I'm wanting to maximize these gains, and when you get to take profits out of something and put it into something else, that's free money, right? It's free investing at that point. So looking at total market cap, we're dancing around in the golden pocket. Actually, this is total 3. Sorry, made that mistake in the actual channel too. Okay, so here's total. And you can see we're in the greed FOMO zone, and you can see that we used these 8 EMAs on the weekly pretty much everywhere as support last week and got a really big bounce. But overall, this is still kind of looking like a top of some sort. So it wouldn't surprise me to see this come back down and hit this again, but ultimately we need to stay inside the 786 to 886 range. If we break down below, then we risk coming back all the way back down to here, right? So we'll just watch and see what happens this week. Whether or not we get over the 886 or not. If we do, we see us get over that, then fine, we can go ahead and say we're going to new all-time highs on the overall market. But until I see it, I'm kind of expecting some more pullbacks happening to shake people out. Looking at total 3, it's doing what we would expect in the golden pocket, which is seeing some profit taking. Again, you can see that 8 EMA as support on the weekly, and we're still not able to close above the 7.1. So until we close above the 7.1, we are likely going to continue consolidating and pulling back. You can see how long we stay in these ranges down here, right? So we might have several weeks of this consolidating sideways. So like I said, you have plenty of time, I think. There's no need to rush into anything. Take little weekly nibbles here and there on some things until it tells us to get out. And right now, there's nothing that says get out. Everything's crazy bullish, and until we see new all-time highs on things like total, which we haven't yet. Bitcoin hit new all-time highs, but it's the only thing, right? So total hasn't gotten there yet. It likely will, which is right around the 3 trillion mark. Let's see, Bitcoin, 1.618 of the previous cycle is this red dotted line. If you're trying to figure out how to get that, all you really have to do is measure this downtrend right here, right? So if you just take your fibs, use your magnet if you want to have a little helper, start at the top, measure to the bottom, and you can see that's right where that 1.618 is, that red line right there. Right? Mine's a little off because I'm probably not on the right candles, but you get the gist. It's right around 62K. If that breaks, then we're very likely going to come down to the 58K mark, which is the top of that greed FOMO zone. So we'll see if that holds. Last week, you can see that Bitcoin didn't even touch the 8 EMA. Everything else kind of did, but it didn't. So it's still continuing to be the top dog. It's still continuing to assert its dominance. We've yet to see Ethereum take over. Now, we have closed this candle on the weekly below that trend line. Now, it's a bit concerning. However, we are still holding that 0.5, and you can see how well it's holding it, like it's holding it to it like the penny, right? So I'm not real worried about Ethereum yet. If, however, I see it close a candle below that 0.5, then I might start thinking that Sol is going to be the new Ethereum. As much as I hate to say that because I really don't like Sol, I would much rather be an Ethereum maxi than a Sol maxi, especially with all these memes going around. They kind of drive me nuts, but I have to do what the chart says if this closes below and say, all right, maybe Ethereum's not going to be the number 2 this cycle. Maybe it's going to be Sol this cycle. Does it mean Ethereum's going to die? No, it just means that maybe Ethereum's not the best bet and Sol is. I don't know. Right now, when we look at Sol dominance, it's kind of out of control. It's making new highs. Even though it hasn't made a new all-time high yet in price, it's making new all-time highs in dominance. Right? So this is telling us something. We have to pay attention to this. I can't ignore it. So while it continues to make higher highs, it is divergent though on the RSI and the MACD. So I'm not sure how much divergence really counts on a dominance chart, but I look at it. So maybe it's finding a top. I don't know. It doesn't look like it, but when we look at Ethereum dominance, it's like continuing to go down. So while we can clearly see this happening between the two, we have to pay attention to that. And so right now, Sol is still dominating over Ethereum as far as the trend of the chart, not in percentage of dominance. When we look at Ethereum, it's getting held up on the daily 8 EMA here. If we look at the weekly on the SME chart, you can see, or on the CME chart, you can see that we've come back down below the 786 here. And now we are opening underneath, and you can see there's already like a little wick used as resistance right there. So until we can get this back up over, I'm going to use the spot chart for it, until we can get this over 35.20 again, then we might continue to see dips. These two levels below are the main places I'm looking at. 3,200 and right around just under 3K are the two main places of support if we do continue to pull back. All right, so I think that covers everything, and if anyone's got any questions or chart requests, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Might have a bounce early, but can you chart RNDR and Phantom? Absolutely. RNDR. Yeah, so this is still, likely headed up here. Right now it's just consolidating in the middle, which is kind of what everything's been doing this cycle. Instead of just going straight up, you kind of get like halfway there, and then it moves sideways for a while, and then eventually it can go up. This kind of reminds me of INJ a bit. So I just want you to kind of look at this at where we are, and then I'm going to go to the INJ chart just to kind of show you the similarities to see maybe what you might expect. So you can see here, and ignore these are old. Right now, RNDR is like right here, right? And so this is what you might be able to expect for a while, is just sideways, kind of up and down choppiness. But ultimately, I do still think this is going to get up here. It just needs time, and that's really all it takes. And it could be something as long as this. You can see how long it took here. So I don't see any problem with RNDR until unless it falls below that all-time high previous, which would be 782, and we're way above that. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. And if you want to keep grabbing little dips here and there, then I don't see anything wrong with that either. Pivots are useless. And if there was a dip, I would try to grab as close to the 8 EMA as possible, around 933. And then ultimately, if it hit that all-time high on the previous one again, then that would be a great dip buy. And you'd have to keep your stops below the 21 EMA, which is all the way down to like 670. Which if you're a holder of this from the lows, then you're good. Just keep holding. There's no reason to sell. Phantom. Oh, I hate Phantom. I didn't like it when it was hot before either, but the chart's bullish. And I suppose as much as people are buying memes and garbage, then you have to pay attention to it, right? So 618's our resistance, so $1.10. If you break up over that, I would expect $1.45. So this is kind of your little target zone. It's right in here. What did I do? What is that? So yeah, right in there. And could wick up as high as the 786. I would expect a pullback from either the golden pocket or the 786 on this. There's probably a lot of bag holders in here, so I don't think this will just blast straight through like everything else has. So I hope that helps. So 110 to 145 is your take profits, and we've already hit 110 and gotten into that area now, so we might see some pullbacks here shortly. DYDX, 11% of circulating supply unlocks on April 1st. Would you buy more at a good price? All right, let's look. I have that somewhere. Okay. So I would not when it's not getting over the 382. If it was over the 0.5, I would say yes. But because this 382 continues to be some serious resistance, I would not buy unless it got over it. It also looks a bit like a rising wedge. So like that and like that. So if you did want to speculate and buy, at least wait until you see the bottom of that wedge. And there's the pivot. So ultimately, if it gets below that pivot, then it's bearish. So 280 is like your cutoff mark. And if it goes below 280, then it's a sell. So it's not as strong as a lot of other things in the market, and I would honestly just probably pick something else. I don't see much good going on here, to be honest with you. So it needs to get over 370 for me to think that this is going to go up to that 550 mark. If they're having unlocks and you see us falling below the 8 EMA on the weekly, let's see what the daily looks like. Yeah, so we're bearish on the daily. Bearish on the daily, having unlocks, it's probably a good short candidate, to be honest with you. And if you can get a tap of that 368 mark again to try to short it back down, then maybe that's worth it. You can see we got like a downtrend going on here, so it's still got a ways to go there. And then that's where I'd try to short it and then try to get it to come back down. If it breaks over there, then try to long it. So this is kind of your pivot, right? So up to you what you want to do with it once it gets there. ICP. Is that the current daily? Yeah. Wait, what? That doesn't make, oh, because it's not there. So that's, yeah, it's already up 5% today. That's a nice move. It's trying to get over the 0.5, it looks like. So let's see, does it have a daily candle over? No, so it's never closed a daily candle over that mark. So that would be a great cue, because if it hasn't before and it does today, then that would be a great sign that we're heading higher. And so you'd want to go long and then keep your stops just underneath. And because of all these wicks back here, I'd probably pick something like that spot right there. So that is a 12 and almost 13% loss if you're wrong. If you wanted to tighten it up, you could probably go to here. But I don't think that's happening. It looks pretty bullish. The weekly's just now the daily's just now crossing bullish. Weekly's been bullish. Yeah, I would say this is pretty confident to head up to that golden pocket. That's where I would take it. I like it. I like that this consistent grind up is usually a good sign, and once it breaks, it can really make a move, like a big one. You can see how fast the candles move up and down through here. So as soon as that breaks, we might just shoot straight up to it. Arrow. I like Arrow. This thing's been good to me. Yeah, this thing's just straight up. Non-stop. See, there's that grind I'm talking about, and you saw the same pattern in the last one. Although in a bear market, when you come down and then you see this pattern coming back up, which is a rising wedge, it's really bearish. And it can be bearish here too. But really in a bull market, this is like a grind up. And Luna did the same thing when it was really bullish. It had the same move. And eventually it fell out of it, and that's when I shorted it. But for now, we just kind of expect the first one of these that you see to be a move up out of it. And once you see it break the top of the wedge, then you're fine. You don't have to worry about the wedge anymore. But if you see it break below the wedge, then get out, because it's probably going to fall quick. So that's the best I can do with that. There's not really a whole lot of data here to use. So if I use that downtrend, you can see the wedge is going to be right where that 1.618 is. So 109 would be a great profit-taking spot. And then see if it can prove that it can get over it. If it does, then the 2.272 is your next target. Doge. How do you pronounce it? I don't even know. Is it Dodge? Is it Doji? Is it Dog Coin? This is too much. It's too much for me. Can't handle it. All right. So there's 2.5s here that are causing a lot of chaos and resistance on it. Called it out at 12 cents here, which is where that arrow is. This is why that arrow's there. That's when I recommended taking a shot on Dodge a few weeks ago, and I'm glad to see that a lot of you did. However, right now we're at a huge resistance, and taking profits here and rebuying down here at the 8 EMA and taking profits again, and then just kind of flipping this back and forth is probably a good idea, especially over the last 3 weeks. I know CL's been taking advantage of that and doing that consistently. His profit shots in the profit shot channel have been awesome. But yeah, ideally we need to break 19 cents, and then we can head up to these levels here. It's wide open as soon as you get through it. So you got a nice, what's that, 25% move once we do get over that up to the next spot. So try to nab a 8 EMA touch right around 14.5 cents. AKT. All right, look, it's above the greed FOMO zone, and it's consistently using it as support and closing candles above it. So 542 is your support. We could get more wicks down to that weekly 8 EMA just under 5, and that's where I would try to grab a little more. But I think this is heading up to these levels up here eventually. So we'll see. It's still a hold for me. AR. Okay, so that could be considered its golden pocket sell-off. That wick there, and now we're holding above it. 786 is the resistance, so if we get above 45.83, then we'll see higher. How much higher? Holy smokes, that looks huge. What's the token supply on this thing? I'm gonna have to look into this. I'm gonna make a note. I don't even see it. AR. Okay. R-Weave, right? It's already 55 market cap rank. Yeah, 65 million tokens. So there's not a lot of supply. So that means this can really move. So yeah, because it's only 65 million tokens, it can absolutely get up this high. That's why I asked. If it was like 100 million or like 500 million, then I'm like, yeah, it's probably not happening. But yeah, that looks good. I like it. Just keep holding. Dodge is the people's coin. Is it though? Is it really the people's coin? What does that even mean? The people's coin. Who's the people? I'm just messing with you. MSTR. Stocks. MicroStrategy. So Michael Saylor is playing one hell of a game. He is buying Bitcoin and selling his own company's stock because his company alone is not worth this much. The only reason it goes up is because of Bitcoin. So instead of selling his Bitcoin, he can sell his company's stock instead. So I would not buy this stock. Yes, it could continue higher. It could, okay, it's probably not going to 20K, but it can continue higher. However, that is divergent right there. So that is down, and that is up. And I would much rather buy Bitcoin than MSTR. I would probably rather buy a Bitcoin ETF than MSTR, especially as high as it is right now. Why? Because that is what can happen, and I don't want to be a part of that. So who knows on this? You can see we got into the greed FOMO zone once and then had a huge fall, and now we're back up into it again, and so that could absolutely repeat depending on the house of cards that Michael Saylor is playing with. That's what the average Joe thinks of is crypto. Yeah, I know. I know, I was just messing with you. Tau. Tau needs to get over 700 or it's coming down. And I have too many lines now. Obviously, I chart this a lot. Okay, so that 2.272 is the 2.272 from this downtrend. And this downtrend here is the actual downtrend that it first started when it first got listed on a major centralized exchange, MEXC. Prior to this, there's a whole lot of data that goes all the way down to like pennies from its original exchange on the website where we bought it originally. So this is, this is accurate. You can count on this because this is where people started actually bringing in liquidity for the market, and the human behavior aspect of things can really start working. So that's why I really pay attention to this 2.272, because it is clearly resistance. We are clearly having some sort of Wyckoff distribution type pattern here, similar to this one back here, and you can see how far down it came. And so we could get a move back down to similar place like 488, which was resistance here, so it should become support here. If it breaks down here, though, the next best place is all the way down here. So just be careful. I do still like it. I do still think that it can get to a higher high at some point in the bull market. We still have some time. But for now, it's pointing down, and the daily is bearish. And so until that daily turns bullish again, then just kind of wait. And you can wait until it turns bullish and have plenty of time. You can see here was the time to buy. So when you see a daily candle do that upon crossing bullish, then that's when you want to buy things, right? And that's a really good indicator, and it's way down here. So you also see this one where it blasts up through both EMAs and closes over, and then you get that consolidation sideways. When you see that happen, buy that dip and then take it higher. And so we'll just have to wait and see if we get that again. Now that we're bearish, we'll see if we get one of those big green candles that blasts through both EMAs or not. And if we do, then that might be time to buy. I hope that helps. Near, where's near? Okay, so we curled those EMAs in the golden pocket. That's a good sign. So it looks like we're probably headed higher. And I would just use this 618 as your stop loss right here. Let's see, it's 12.6%. Obviously you wouldn't want to leverage trade that, but not bad for a spot trade. So if you're still holding it, then yeah, just keep holding it. And that 786 will likely become a target at some point in the future. And then we get through that whole zone, and if it's going to be something that sticks around in the bull market, then we can maybe see as high as this over here. All right. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for being here. I will post this video recording in the Weekly Outlook channel, and hopefully there is no echo this time. I'm praying. All right, have a good one. Bye.